Okay, folks, so here we are, standing overlooking a rather barren, wind and rain-swept heath, just outside the village of Loggerheads, just about on the border between Staffordshire and Shropshire, a couple of miles away from the town of Market Drayton. And you might ask why we're here. Well, this unassuming field that we see in front of us right now, on the 23rd of September 1459, was the site of a pretty notorious battle. In fact, the first major conflict in the Wars of the Roses. This whole area is known as Blore Heath, and the Battle of Blore Heath took place between the House of Lancaster and York here in 1459, as I said. And the battle itself was in fact an ambush set up by the House of Lancaster to ambush the forces of York who were marching south towards Ludlow. The Yorkist forces were under the command of one Richard Neville. Now, this isn't actually the famous Richard Neville, Earl of Warwick the Kingmaker. This is actually his father, who was Lord Salisbury. And on the Lancastrian side, the commander was one Lord Audley, under the command of Queen Margaret of Anjou, the wife of King Henry VI, who was a major figure at that time, coordinating many of the battle plans of the House of Lancaster. And basically this battlefield, which we're going to get a better panorama of in a minute, was the site of the first major conflict, as I said, and the Lancastrian forces were camped in ambush on this site, an area known as the Great Hedge, which is, if you can actually do the battlefield walk, which we will at some point, but unfortunately weather conditions are not ideal for that today. That's where the Lancastrian forces were hid in ambush, some 10,000 men, waiting for the Yorkists to come down. But medieval warfare being as it was, the idea of the ambush was not entirely great on this rather open landscape, really. Apart from the hidden dips and troughs, it's pretty much wide open, and the Yorkist scouts actually saw the banners of the House of Lancaster peeking out from over the top of the hedge. So their scouts reported to Richard Neville, Lord Salisbury, that there was an ambush lying in wait, and he responded to it. He camped his forces probably just over the hill there, and the House of Lancaster was facing the direction that we're facing, almost towards Newcastle-under-Lyme. And after a few parleys which came to nothing, Lord Warwick basically put his plan into action, which involved goading in the House of Lancaster, who were superior in numbers, to try and reverse the ambush back on them. And sure enough, Lord Salisbury's forces started feigning a retreat in the middle, and the cocksure House of Lancaster charged straight into the breach and got half of the cavalry destroyed in the process. And then two further assaults on foot also came to nothing. As a battle, it was rather inconclusive before the end of it all. But out of 15,000 men, there were some 3,000 casualties on both sides. And so it was actually a pretty bloody battle, and the stream that flows nearby here ran red for days. Of the blood of the soldiers from the battlefield. Like I say, as the battle progressed, the House of Lancaster ended up retreating, and the Yorkists camped just near here, near Market Drayton, before continuing on to Ludlow. And during the battle, both commanders of the House of Lancaster, Lord Audley and Lord Dudley, were slain. And on the battlefield, though you can't actually see it from here, it's quite obscured in one of the dips, there is a stone cross erected on the site where Lord Audley fell, that's been there pretty much since the time. I believe the modern cross has been there since the 18th century. I'll lift up the camera now for a quick panorama of the battlefield. At some point, like I say, I hope to do the walk itself, because it is one of the most intact battlefields in the country. Many of the original features of the landscape are still there, including the hedge, which obscured the ambush not very well. Okay, here goes. and bringing it back down. That was a sneak preview of the battlefield of Blore Heath. Hopefully someday we will do the walk, but for now we'll continue on just up the road to the little village of Mucklestone for a further piece to the story. Thank you for watching.